Welcome back to my channel. My name is Jessica Hover. If you're new, so good to have you. I make videos for growing families, and today's video is with my friend, nutritionist and wellness coach, Lizzy Cangro, and we're gonna be talking about disordered eating. So kind of addressing what that is, how you can overcome it and become a healthier you. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and leave comments below to be a part of the conversation. In the last video I did with Lizzy, she even went back and answered some questions that people had left. So if you watch this and you have more questions for her, feel free to leave a comment and we can come in after and get to you. So, as we jump in here, I just want to give you a moment to introduce yourself for people who didn't see you on my channel before. My question for you is kind of big picture. Who are you? How did you get to here now, what you're doing? And then you can just roll right into disordered eating and what that is, because it all ties together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on your channel again. It's a pleasure to be back. So for those of you who haven't met me before, I'm Lizzy. I am a nutritionist and wellness coach from England, as you can tell from the accent.
Love the accent. We pay our extra for the accent.
Yeah. My passion really is in helping women achieve unconditional love for their bodies using movement, nutrition, and mindset. My journey began when I was 14 years old. And my dad walked through the door one evening and said, I'm so sorry, but Granddad died this morning of a heart attack. And in that moment, my own heart stopped, because I was like, oh my goodness, what did I do to cause this? Now, give you a little bit of backstory. He was going through chemotherapy, and a couple of days before he died, I gave him some lemon drizzle cake. I baked him some lemon drizzle cake to make him feel better. It was his favorite. I was like, oh, I just want to make you feel good. And in my naivety as a 14-year-old, the first thought that I had was, I killed him with my cake. Because of that, when kind of in the following weeks after he died, I decided to go and look for information on how to eat healthily so that the same thing wouldn't happen again. And the more I researched, the more I started not trusting myself with food. And as a result, I actually became really, really ill. I developed anorexia nervosa, and it lasted for about 10 years. The more I sort of looked outside of myself for food, advice, and what to eat, the less and less I trusted myself, and the more disordered my eating became.
That's so sad. I didn't know that story. When someone has an eating disorder or some variation of disordered eating, I feel like there's a spectrum on this, and you'll probably touch on it.
Yeah.
A lot of times you think it's about the food, or you think it's about your weight. But this was triggered by something that was unrelated to those things.
It's interesting, because when I got officially diagnosed, I actually had other people telling me the exact opposite of what the magazines were telling me of what to eat to be healthy. I was being told, oh, you need to eat all of this calorie-dense food because this is going to be healthy for you. So I was just confused. I was frustrated, and I was just beyond, like, I don't know what I'm doing anymore. And so what I realized then was all of my power I'd given to other people, whether or not it was, the magazines or, my care team. Everybody else was telling me what to do with my body. And that feels very disempowering. So I wanted to get my own power back. I decided to reclaim my power and actually learn for myself how to fuel my body. And I find that when clients come to me now, after, I trained as a nutritionist and I actually learned about food and began to trust myself more and more and more.
Did you do that in the States?
I did not. So I studied nutrition in England, King's College London, and became a registered nutritionist over there. And that really kind of like was my turning point to actually fully trusting myself with food, because I felt empowered with my own knowledge. But what I found once I had kind of gone through that process and set up my own client base, and I was receiving all of these women coming to me with the same thing, like they didn't trust themselves because different sources of information were either conflicting, or they were feeling disempowered because they didn't feel like they were enough. So I feel like a lot of companies out there try and sell us that belief of you're not enough.
Yeah.
But guess what?
Yeah.
Once you buy our product, you'll be enough.
Yeah.
Right. So really, like, re-empowering ourselves to trust our own bodies is the key, because when we feel like we're enough anyway, then guess what? We don't need other external influences for that.
That makes a lot of sense.
Right.
So take us through this now. What is disordered eating and what does it look like? So the person watching this, I'm assuming you're a parent or going to be a parent, but I actually think this topic reaches beyond that. So you might not be a parent or even have parenting on your radar, but you're interested in the topic of disordered eating. Could you tell us just really what is it and what can we do to overcome it? You know this. I'm trying not to make this a super long video. I want it to just be punchy to the point, like, so you can get something out of this that can at least begin the journey. So feel free. I'll just listen and you take us away.
Yeah, so there's eating disorders, you know, your anorexia, bulimia, overeating, binge eating disorder, all of those. But there's also disordered eating, and disordered eating is on a spectrum, right? So you have on one end of the spectrum, the extreme is eating disorders, where, you know, you require specialist help and advice and input, and it can be very, very serious. Whereas disordered eating you can be any point on that spectrum. And it can look like different things to different people. So for example, if you're stressed, you may find that you emotionally eat. So maybe you are reaching for the cookie jar more, or maybe you're not eating as much. I've had experience with women who kind of forget to eat. We had a conversation.
Someone close to me, I was talking to them on the phone and they're like, wow, I just feel so out of it. It's a mother who was working and she's amazing. And I was like, how's your eating right now? She's like, honestly, yesterday I forgot to eat until 6 p.m. And today I haven't eaten too much. And actually all last week I wasn't really eating. I was like, well, that's not gonna fix your emotional problem to start eating, but it'll maybe help weaken the intense emotions if you're eating well, right? I mean, I look at my own kids and if they're acting out, my first thought is, I wonder if they're hungry. Because if they're really crying hard and temper tantrums and stuff, if I feed them, that seems to minimize that, and then we can deal with whatever else might be going on.
Right. So there's that kind of emotional component to eating and how that might play out, but there's also so many more things, like I see, for example, a lot of women wanting to cut out food groups because they think it's going to get them some kind of result. So I see a lot in terms of like women wanting to cut out dairy to reduce their acne, or gluten is a really big one that a lot of people think that they need to do. And therefore they start worrying, am I having too much bread, and all of that kind of thing. So if you have disordered eating, maybe you feel like an anxiety around certain foods, want to cut out certain foods, that type of thing, that restrictive nature.
So what do you think about that? Because I do know friends who cut out things like dairy for acne. Would you be on the side that would say maybe not, or that might work but that's not necessarily the answer? Like, where do you come from?
Exactly. So I feel like it's a very individual thing. So obviously there are allergies and intolerances, and in that case sometimes it's necessary to cut out or reduce a certain type of food, but not necessarily a whole food group. So for example, people will cut out carbohydrates because they think that it's going to make them fat, right? So in that case that's not helpful, but people with maybe celiac who have got a gluten intolerance need to switch to gluten-free products, but they don't cut out carbs. So it really does depend, and it also does depend on what type of food we're talking about. So for example, there is good evidence that IBS, some people with IBS, cutting down on gluten can help minimize the symptoms. So it really does depend on the individual, and that's something that needs to be discussed on a case-by-case basis with a dietitian or doctor or nutritionist. So
so someone comes to you, they have some variation of disordered eating, they want to get it under control, but realistically, I know my people, they also want to be thin, they want to be maybe fit. How do you address this? Like, what's your take on where they go with this? They have all of this information coming about what's healthy and what's not. They have their own habits, and they're looking to move ahead in a way that's healthy for them.
Right.
Where do we start?
We go completely back to basics. So an exercise that I love to do with people to kind of reclaim that trust in their own body is literally using a hunger scale. Okay. So we all know what it's like to feel hungry, right?
Yeah, yes. We do. I hesitate though, because I remember when I was really bulimic, I got to this weird place, like this almost detached place with my body where I honestly did not know when I was hungry and when I wasn't. And part of getting healthy, this was years ago, was like relearning how to do what you just said, trust your body, which is actually a really hard thing if you've gotten to a point where emotionally you've separated from your body.
Right. Yeah. And that is a very difficult place to be, where you literally do not know when you're hungry. And in that case, I would say this is where specialist advice is important, that advice that I was talking about when you do have an extreme condition, because then that can support you into start really kicking those systems into place where your body is telling you what you need. Because when we get really, really ill, sometimes our bodies just shut down, so much so that this beautiful, elegant machine doesn't work. But for most of us who have maybe disordered eating, we can recognize to some extent some hunger. So what I say to those people is start tuning into that. Start rating your hunger on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 being like, I'm so hungry where I could like eat my own limb, and 10 being like, I am stuffed like a Thanksgiving turkey. And when you're kind of like around a 4, try not to go below a 4. I would start, considering to have something to eat, and then stop when you reach like a 7 maybe. And when you start doing that and start using that really simple exercise, you start reconnecting with your body and what it's telling you. And hunger signals vary, right? So your brain can tell you you're hungry, or you might feel your stomach rumbling, or you might just feel a little bit maybe dizzy. So tuning into all those different signals as well, and just really listening to what your body is telling you is just so important, because once you start doing that, then you start to understand more subtle things, like if you're craving chocolate when you're on your period. That's a really common one for a lot of women, right? And that's your body saying, oh, I need to feel good, pick me up with carbohydrates, give me some carbohydrates, because carbohydrates produce serotonin, and serotonin is our feel-good hormone. And that's just like, it's so cool how elegant our bodies are. And when you kind of like have that appreciation and knowledge for it, you don't need the diet industry anymore. You don't need the magazines to tell you what to eat, because you know your own body. I'm trying to think of like, what is something somebody's gonna say that like, well, my body wants chips all the time. What do you say to them? Right. And it's okay to want that. Like, it's delicious. That's true. And it's delicious for a good reason, because again, food companies are making them delicious and appealing to our taste buds so that we buy it, and they make money. So it's understanding the reasons why we're craving those things, and maybe, if you're starting to want to eat healthier and choose a healthier option, then okay, so you want something sweet. All right, well, choose a bar of dark chocolate and have a couple of squares of that. But if you're trying to make a more consistent, healthier choice, then just upgrade your choice. I like to think of it as like a pyramid. You've got your basic, better, and best option, and just try and move up the pyramid. Oh, that's cool. It's your cues along with some just general wisdom about nutrition, which may or may not be hard to find. Sometimes if you go looking too hard, you end up with a whole world of information that's really confusing. But just generally speaking, fruits and vegetables are good for you. Protein is important, carbs are important, right? So it's taking, like, maybe your desire is macaroni and cheese all day, but wisdom would say throw in some other things along with it. Or just, use the whole grain pasta. Like, it's, you can just make really, really small swaps. But I feel like we all have like just a basic knowledge of what our bodies need. And a lot of times I see that in clients who come to me, they say, what should I be eating? And then they start kind of giving me suggestions, and I'm like, yeah, exactly. So they really know. You kind of know. And then from there, if you want to know more stuff, then make sure that you're seeking advice from a professional. So seek out the registered dietitians and nutritionists.
Yeah.
Make sure that the information that you're seeking out is reliable, because it's, you know, it's always worth building your knowledge, but really that's where the confusion sometimes comes, when there's so much stuff out there and you don't know who to trust. So trust your own body first, and then if you're not sure, then you can always seek advice, but seek advice from the right people.
Sure. So I'm a new mom, maybe I have a baby, and I'm pretty consumed with the baby's needs, so much so, and I'm underslept, severely underslept, right? So I'm then finding it even harder to tap into my natural hunger cues, and I have baby weight on me that hasn't gone away yet, so I'm confused. Do you have any wisdom for her, for that woman who would really like to do this but feels a little lost in this stage?
Right, and I would say, you know, basic is always the best, right? So if you can start by just doing one thing, like keep it really simple and just do it consistently enough, then that is super powerful, and then you can build on that one habit to incorporate another habit. I would say rest is super, super important. So that's another aspect of listening to your body. When you're so tired that you just want to fall asleep in the day, that's your body telling you, stop.
Something,
Please, like, rest.
Yeah.
You know, I understand you want to prioritize the needs of your baby and everything like that, but mom also needs, at some very basic level, you know, food, nutrition, you know, sleep, all of the basic needs. You need to also look after yourself so you can look after your kids. And I think we're going to be talking about that in another video, which is
we are. Huge. So the next video I'm going to film with her, which we'll film right now but I'll release in a few days, is going to be about prioritizing yourself in a way that fills you up so you can then fill up the people around you as well. So that's interesting. So for the mom who maybe is having a hard time tapping into her own hunger, you're saying then prioritize her rest. Wherever she's able to find rest, let that be the thing she prioritizes for now, along with eating. But probably eating, I'm just adding to this, is like for me, when I had my kids, all three of them actually, I was in this fog where I didn't know how to think about my food. So, because it was like too much brain space to go there. So I would just have a bunch of snacks on hand and try and be sure I was eating every few hours, even if it wasn't cued by my own hunger, it was cued by the amount of energy I was having to exert by being up with my kids, by nursing them. I was breastfeeding at the time. So are you on board with that idea? Is like just setting up structures so that they are eating well regularly?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, putting those very easy to follow habits in place, you know, being prepared by having the snacks on hand, you know, having yourself, you know, set a timer on your phone to, like, you know, remind you, make sure that you're eating. You know, that can be really, really helpful. And it's also a way of reducing the amount of time and energy that you need to fuel your body, but you are still fueling it, because we only have so much energy in the day, right? And when we're expending so much of that energy on looking after other people, tiny humans, then, you know, finding the things that are quick and simple and easy is a super, super effective strategy that we can have.
That's so good. And you want us to trust our bodies, which I love. I agree with. I know that there's a part of me in the beginning of this journey that doubted my body knew what was best for me. Like, what if my own body was going to make me fat?
Right.
Do you have anything to say to that?
Yeah.
Because I think that's a common idea.
Absolutely. And what I would say to that is, what if it doesn't? So I feel like so much of our own limitations come from fear, and fear is, you know, the one thing that gets between us and self-love. And when we can move past the fear by reframing something in a positive light, then that is very, very empowering. So what if it is what you need to do to actually prove to yourself that actually trusting my own body isn't going to make me fat? Because once you prove that to yourself, oh my goodness, just think about how much inner peace and energy and just power you're going to reclaim for yourself.
That's beautiful.
I actually, I felt the same way when I was doing that, when I was recovering from my eating disorder. And at the time my therapist shared this with me, and I'm going to share it with your audience because I think it's really, really powerful. She said, it's like climbing a mountain. You can go as quickly as you want, you can always stop to take a break, but when you get to the top of that mountain, then the view will be amazing. And that always stuck with me. It was very comforting because I knew that I had the kind of control over how much I wanted to trust myself, how much I, you know, recovered, but knew that on the other side it would just feel so free.
That's so cool. I love that. As somebody who also, I feel like I'm on the other side of a lot of this. There was a time in my life when this was my biggest battle, honestly, where I was like, I don't know if I'll ever have a healthy relationship with food or my body, and I was desperate to have it. And now that I am on this point where I feel like I really do, I'm so thankful that I trusted my body and that I trusted myself. And in my case, it felt like it took a lot of faith. It was a trust that God, if God made my body, it was a good body. And so now that I'm here, I'm in this body sitting here, like after everything we've been through, I feel like, gosh, we did it. Like, we're doing good, and I can honor and respect my body as something that's a really, really good thing, worthy of care and love. And I think it's worth it. So for anybody who's on the beginning of this and like, no, I don't know if my body's worth trusting, I think we should go for it. It's been really good. And
it's a journey. It's a journey. So like, it's not, you know, always gonna look like sunshine and rainbows, but on the days where you don't feel that great, just know that you can keep going. That there is that long-term benefit to your happiness, just your overall experience of life.
And so good. Any final points? You have a book that you've written that's going to be coming out, which will give them more of this, but any final thoughts? And the book, let them have it.
So this is clearly an area that's really close to my heart and yours, and it's actually one of my rebellious acts in my new book. So my new book is called Reclaim the Rebel, and it is being launched on December 7th. So if you want updates on that, follow me at Nutrition by Lizzy. In the meantime, you can head to my website and get some recipes so that you can enjoy eating without any fads. If you're sick of the cabbage soup diets, then these are definitely going to help you enjoy eating. They're delicious, and you can share them with your friends and family. So head to nutritionbylizzy.com/recipes for those.
Awesome. That's so great. Thank you guys for being here. If you have questions, again, feel free to leave them in the comments. If you need more support in your parenting journey, we have a Facebook group called Jess Hover and Friends. You can go over there and engage with the other families who are there. It's a lot of people. They're really great. So come join us there. And if you want to follow my family, I'm on Instagram. It's Jess_Hover. And thanks for being here. I'm about to film the next video with her. Okay, we'll see you.